Let's try this out. There. That's a scary zoomed in camera. Okay. Well, welcome everyone to our Glendale Community College Female Changemakers in Media workshop in honor of Women's History Month. I am lucky to be here, with the head of our diversity committee, Gina Desai, and also we have three amazing panelists. Our first panelist, and we'll start at the end and work our way across. I have Lexi Romano, who is not only a person in the media doing things today, she is also a former gaucho. So once a gaucho, always a gaucho. Lexi has been on Broadway, graduated from Cal State University Fullerton, lived in New York for a while, and is now back here in Arizona, had a wonderful TV show, Phoenix Finds. I keep wanting to say Arizona Finds, I apologize. Phoenix Finds, it's local, she doesn't want to travel too far. And that show is now transferring from a TV show to a digital show, and we're going to talk about during the day how that market has changed and how the demographics have changed, and so many people can be reached online that may not be tuning into TV. And as I say, people not tuning into TV, we have one of TV's stars right next to her.
We're not tuning into TV at all.
I did not say that. Now, I tune into Channel 3 or 5 every night, depending on the half hour. And from Channel 3 and 5, Arizona Family, we're lucky to have Jamie Soretta. If any of you have ever driven down Glendale Road, you may have seen her family's business, Soretta Candies. And I almost brought everyone French mint candies, but I was like, that would be a little awkward saying, here, I'm bringing Soretta Candies to thank a Soretta for speaking. But Jamie has grown up in the Phoenix area, a graduate of ASU, and has been with Arizona Family for, how many years? 10 years in August. And it has been amazing. And what's super neat about Jamie is it's not that she's just doing the news. She's created a connection with Phoenix and her Jamie's Local Love segments that we're going to talk about today, where she has put local businesses from failing into succeeding. We watch about Food Network people, home and garden people that say we're going to take bad businesses and bad things and fix them. We've got that right here with Jamie, with small local businesses. She puts them on the map. It's better than Oprah's book club. She is an amazing person and has done wonderful things for our community. So thank you for joining us. And our third and definitely not final panelist, way back down to there, is Chrissy May. And Chrissy and I'm not sure exactly how we met, but we've had a long relationship of being involved with different things together, and it's been an amazing run as it goes. And I've seen Chrissy publish magazines. I've seen Chrissy on TV as a speaker, as a motivational coach. She is now hosting a podcast that has taken off on wellness, spirituality. And when she's not busy doing all of that, she's selling real estate, she's running a drink nutrition shop, and two of them, one in Arcadia, one in downtown Phoenix. So it's kind of like, where do they find time to do anything? But thankfully, all three found time to come here today for a couple hours and talk to y'all. So thank you very much. And what I'd like to do, because I probably missed a little bit about each of your bios, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself to the group here and the group that's online. So if we want to start with Lexi and just kind of work your way down.
Should I take this off of you?
Whichever you feel comfortable with. Okay? All right.
And
It should be.
Check 1, 2.
I'll turn it on.
There we
Yeah,
go.
that helps. Hi, Like Brent said, my name is Lexi. So nice to be here with you guys today. Thanks for coming and thanks for watching online. And yeah, you pretty much hit all the main points. I'm originally from Southern California, graduated from Cal State Fullerton. I moved to New York City, which is where I lived for almost 10 years and worked as a performer. I'm also a singer and an actor. But when I moved here to Arizona, I really wanted to transition into on-camera work. And so I thought about going to ASU, which has an amazing master's program for journalism and communications. But I decided that the MCC system here in Arizona has such amazing professors, and at a fraction of the cost of getting your master's, you can learn just as much if you choose to come here and apply yourself. And so that's what I did. I came here and got a degree in journalism and new media. And after that, I felt equipped to start doing more TV work, and that's when I started my show, Phoenix Finds. And we originally had it on AZTV7, which was a great partnership. But yeah, moving into kind of what we do now in 2023, so many people are online. We're all on our phones all the time, right? We're always watching stuff online. And so many people have even, I know I do, I sit in front of my television and I watch YouTube TV. So moving into the digital sphere has kind of been our next step, and really trying to conquer all of that, because you can really target and market to specific audiences and really get it out to the specific people, the specific eyeballs you want to watch your content. So that's what we do with our show, and it is similar to what Jamie does with Jamie's Local Loves, highlighting local businesses, local brands, local people around town. So please tune in, check it out online. We're called Phoenix Finds. That's me.
Thank you very much.
All right, hi everybody. So yes, I grew up a kid in a candy store. My grandpa started the Soretta Candy Company like 53 years ago. My dad was a candy maker all his life, and I loved the entrepreneurial spirit, how hard they worked, how much what they did they really loved. It was just part of them. And as a kid in the candy store, one of my favorite things to do was where they kept all the storage. They had like a piece of cardboard and boxes where they'd push the boxes back. So I'd get on that piece of board and I'd push myself back, and my cousins and I would slide around. And then there was the microphone. So I loved the microphone. And I'd say, "Paging Jim Jr." And I knew I had to find some way to use a microphone, and I loved people, and I loved getting to see behind the scenes of things. I was always asking my parents like where the ambulance was going and just being nosy. And so I started just working my way that way. People asked if I worked at the candy store. I did occasionally if I needed $20 to go to prom or whatever the case would be. But really I was focused on how I was going to be in front of the camera and really be with the people and tell their stories. So when I was in high school, we had something called Channel 1 News. Oh no, it was old school. But it was out of Hollywood, and it was a bunch of kids, and Lisa Ling was on it, and they would go and tell national stories, and I really just loved how people got to get behind the scenes like that. So I went to Chaparral High School, I went to ASU, I was in Cronkite, I got an internship over at Channel 12 here in town. I met C. McLaughlin. He's a meteorologist. He does the weather with us at Channel 3 and 5 Arizona's Family. And I just dug my claws in and I never let him go. So I made him look at my resume tapes year after year after year. And I worked my way home. And it took me 14 years to get back home. My first job was here in radio. My first words on air were, oh my gosh. God bless me, they let me continue to work. KFYI News Time, 5:10. And I went on with my broadcast. So that was me. And I think that then I went into TV, and I went to Joplin, Missouri as a one-man band, Springfield, Missouri, where I produced and anchored my morning show. And then I went to Beaumont, Texas, where I was the morning anchor, and then Oklahoma City as the evening anchor. And then they finally hired me back home. I had been knocking on that door, that glass door at AZ Family, and watching myself age, meeting with every boss there, trying to get in the door, and I finally did. So I'm really excited to celebrate my 10-year anniversary in August. So it's good to be back home.
We're not letting you go.
Test, test, test. All right. I'm Chrissy May. Very nice to meet you all this morning. So my background is in the sports arena. I was a competitive figure skater growing up in Illinois, And when I retired from skating, I knew I wanted to stay in the health and wellness space. So I relocated to sunny Arizona and went to Southwest Institute of Healing Arts, which is a school that specializes in spirituality, nutrition, rehabilitation therapy, anything to do with the overall well-being of your body. And shortly after that, I started opening my own business. And I was hit by the competitive bug again. I'm like, I gotta do something. And so I saw a competition on ESPN one day and said, that's it. I'm gonna start competing in fitness competitions. And so I started competing in the Fitness America circuit. And shortly after, a lot of photographers and TV people started noticing the competitors at these competitions. And so I started modeling for fitness magazines nationally and internationally, started writing for them, so all of their columns they needed help in, I would write those, which opened doors for me in the TV industry. So I'd go to LA every 2 weeks and drive back to Arizona, and this went on for 2 years. It was a long journey. Shortly after, I just knew I didn't want to stay in LA, so I moved back to Phoenix and started another business. So my background really has always been in health and wellness and fitness and just helping others become the best version they possibly can be. So fast forward to several years later, that's when I got into real estate and many other businesses. As Brent mentioned, we have a few one-stop nutrition franchises here locally, if you've heard of them. Everybody knows their smoothies. They're very tasty. They're all independently owned and operated. We own one in Arcadia and one in downtown Phoenix. And so I help support those stores as well. And then enter the podcast that happened about a year ago. Aligned and Alive podcast is every Friday. It's always a topic pertaining to health, wellness, spirituality, mindset, helping you become the best version of you. And every Monday morning, I drop a guided meditation that helps you align yourself throughout the week and just center and become open. So, I'm missing my women's wellness retreats. I also have women's wellness retreats that I host in Sedona, Paradise Valley, and Maui, Hawaii. So just a lot of goodness to spread throughout the world, and that's always just been my sweet spot, what I really enjoy operating from. So, yeah.
The guys never get to go to Maui, Hawaii. That's not fair. But thank you very much. And it being Women's History Month, I'm curious, because you've all taken different steps, different roads, different paths. Have you seen difficulties or issues in your industries or your field where men and women are treated differently? There's opportunities that might be easier for a man to step in or easier for a woman to step in. I mean, it could be good stories, bad stories, but I'm just curious, do any of you have examples of paths you've taken and the struggles that may have come from that, or successes?
Okay, I'll take that one. I think I'm kind of coming from the old school TV news where when I started in TV news, it was a 5, 6, and 10, and it was a man and woman who anchored those newscasts, usually that same team. And so as I was looking for jobs, there were maybe 2 in a city that I wanted or could apply for, and a lot of times that man was the more prominent role in even that pairing. So I think over the years I've seen, I think physical is always interesting as a woman, that they get a little more attention physically, good or bad. I've had phone calls made to my home when I lived in Joplin, Missouri about my body. And I think that it was, that's something that I think the male colleagues, they say they can wear the same suit every day for a month, you'd never notice. I wear something that's a little too satiny with ruffles and I get complaints. So I think just the physical stuff is stupid and silly. And people are opening their eyes to that and even getting used to looking at an aging woman, for God's sakes, who maybe has experience. So as a man, they might be seen as an experienced man who's been to all these cities. As a woman, I'll get comments sometimes that I'm not 20 anymore. I'm not 20 anymore. I'm thrilled I'm not 20 anymore. It was fun. I had a blast. But I'm really glad that I have the experience that I have underneath me. I feel like I've lived 1,000 lives in all these different cities that I really got to, as a news reporter, be a part of. I wasn't just a spectator. I was, on the bull at the rodeo in Beaumont, Texas, who peed live on air while I was doing my work. I scared the bull. Gosh darn it. Yes, the bull. I scared the bull, Lexi. So you just don't know what you're up against. And I think when it comes to man against woman, or in that what challenge a woman might be seen differently, I think as we look at these two ladies who are next to me and how they've carved out their careers so differently, everything is up in the air, everything's up for grabs, and just go for what you want with as hard as you want and in the direction that you want. If digital feels good, if podcasts feel good, if live remotes on TV that people might hopefully be watching on their phones if they're not in front of the TV anymore feels good. I think it's really important, use the word sweet spot. The sweet spot feels good. And I think it's important to just notice and be aware, and if you see things that are happening, bring them to attention.
And I'd like to just kind of follow up with that before we get answers from the other two. I mean, there was that slight controversy on CNN a couple weeks ago where women were out of their prime when they hit their 40s, 50s. How do we fix that where there isn't that thought of women being done at a much younger age than their male counterparts? How do we get people a little bit more aware and knock some sense into them?
Sensitive to them not aging? Is that what you're asking?
Well, the comment was the concerns about how old you are to run for president. And someone said, who was in the early 50s, well, they're too old and we should have younger new people. And a commentator in CNN said, well, you should be quiet because you're in your 50s and you're past your prime as a woman, inferring most likely her childbirthing years, her prime. But we see it in business very often that a woman gets married, well, she's not there to be counted on because she's probably gonna have kids and want to leave the job. A man gets married, congratulations, we keep working, everything's good. The stereotypes, the gender stereotypes are out there. How do you deal with them? How do you change them?
I think some of those men want to stay home and raise the baby now.
I
Because
volunteered with my
the
wife.
women are succeeding and they're able to make choices. I think in my generation, we were one of the first that really were taught that you get to make your choices and you're not going to college to get your MRS.
Right.
You're going to make your own choices. So I was always taught that I could make my own choices. And I think that as this generation comes up and more of us come up and are running our own businesses and we get to make those choices, and maybe someone who is on television saying something like that would get a sterner warning.
Fair enough. Okay. What questions do you have?
So the one question that I do have is, what about the space for women of color? So, I teach an MCO 120 course, and in that course, it says oftentimes just to be an anchor, for instance, there is this idea of we want to, that break that glass ceiling, so to speak. And so I want everyone to kind of think about, who do you normally see? Because it's oftentimes a white male, and sometimes you'll see like an Asian woman. Is that changing, do you think? Do you think the space is changing in terms of the pairing and, having that, I guess Brent and I are almost functioning in that capacity today, where you have the woman of color and then you have, the white male. They say that that's oftentimes the greatest number of what you see on television within the role of being like an anchor.
I mean, this is probably something more you could speak to, Jamie, just because this is something, but I do think that no matter what it is, if it's breaking stereotypes in any way, if it's for ageism, sexism, racism,
Absolutely.
anything like that,
Yes.
I think the more we talk about it, and just being here today talking about it, I think is a good step forward, and I think that's how change comes about. But you could probably speak a little bit more to this.
I know that I've been told I need another white blonde girl like I need a hole in the head by a hiring executive. So I think people
Oh.
have been looking to diversify their newsrooms. It's been more prominent in the last few years.
Yes.
I've worked with Black women who have become my best friends, who I've seen up close have different journeys
Yes.
as far as things that were said to them, whether on social media or things that happened in the newsroom. So I think there's a lot to be done there. But I think the tide is coming, and I think the change is coming, and I think it's important for people to see that diversity. I know when I was down in Beaumont, Texas, it was 50-50 black and white. It was Cajun country. It was Creole. It was so much fun for me from being born and raised in Phoenix to just learn about all these other cultures and such. So I really enjoyed it. And we really were focused on meeting both we wanted to meet the demographic of the population that we were serving. It's a no-brainer. That is what your purpose is. And so when you go out in the community, you're not interviewing all white men. You know, you want to make sure that you are meeting that population breakup of the community and get those opinions. So I think change is coming.
I love to hear that.
I think we're already seeing it, though, in so many ways. I mean, look, you can't even turn on the TV or YouTube without seeing the pairing going on. So I think it's much more prevalent than it ever has been. So, I mean, that's just my take on it.
So that's leading me to my next question. So most people are familiar with the whole Me Too movement and what women have faced for many, many years, this concept of being objectified, sexualized, whatsoever, by males who have dominated the field. And so I know that there may have been instances where you faced some resistance from a particular male supervisor, or maybe it was just a colleague. Can you share any experiences of that nature that you've faced? Because women are oftentimes expected to look a certain way, like you said, and again, the whole ageism is there, as well as you need to be in the gym, you need to be a little less, work a little bit more on your weight, and comments like that. I'm just wondering if your experience has ever been like that.
I don't know that I've ever had anybody make specific comments to my face about stuff like that. Social media, you have to kind of take with a grain of salt. But for me, with the show that I produce, I hire all of my videographers. So I'm hiring them, and they're coming in, and we're working together. I consider it a collaboration. But at the end of the day, I am hiring them. And so if I tell them, hey, I need you to shoot it this way, I need you to use this kind of a gimbal, I need you to do this, I expect that they're going to do it because I'm hiring them. This is, a show I'm producing. And I have had men that I've worked with who were not comfortable with that, and it became a problem because they weren't comfortable working with me telling them or me directing them. And so that's something that I've had to find the balance of. And if that isn't going to work out for both of us, if that relationship isn't going to work out, then maybe this isn't the right relationship and I need to find somebody else. But being sensitive to that is really, really tricky. And as a woman, you definitely have to find the words that you would want to be spoken to with that aren't just, you don't just bark orders, you don't just tell people exactly what to do, but finding a way to make everyone feel like this is a collaboration, we work together. And I think maybe that is something that women deal with that men maybe don't. Maybe they don't have to think as much about how they direct people. Maybe they just tell people what to do and that's just how it is. But that is something for me that I've experienced when I'm hiring people and I am directing them. So that's my personal experience, but it is just finding that fine way to be respectful in the direction and in the coaching without being bossy. And that's another thing. As women, we get called bossy or something like that. But
That's a nice word.
but
That's
just
a very kind word.
But
for
turning the word around and allowing it to also be empowering that, technically I am hiring you. I am the boss. And so I do get to tell you how I want things to be done because this is my show that I'm producing, but still finding that way to balance it so that everyone feels really respected.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been an entrepreneur and a business owner, so for me, I've never had to deal with that, thank God. But like Lexi said, it's basically it's who you align yourself with too, and how you set the standard on how an operation's going to play out, right? And how you choose how you want to be treated. And so, I operate as a team with everything we do. We all collaborate, men and women. And as long as you show up and you do what you say you're going to do, there's never an issue. It's not a competition. I've never felt I had to outshine my male counterparts. That never has entered my mind. And the people I work alongside with don't carry that mindset either. So I'm a firm believer it's really who you align yourself with.
Thank you.
A lot of my bosses have been women. And so I think a lot of the negative thing about weight or whether I had a child or whatever came from trolls on social media,
Right.
which are just easily silenced.
Yes.
Ban
I
is a
love
beautiful
that, easily
thing.
silenced.
And you know what I mean? Sometimes someone will say something that stings for a minute. Or like, I went through a health issue here in town, and I, blew up like a balloon. I knew I was not looking great. I didn't feel great either, but I was still showing up to work as I could on television, which adds 10 pounds, and I didn't feel like sharing my story. So I just think that as far as being in the Me Too, boss kind of putting your finger to, are you going to do this or not?
Yes.
I haven't had that moment, so I'm grateful for that. But I think that I have always treated myself with integrity, have treated my colleagues with integrity, as these women have said, and then they likely knew I wasn't the one to mess with in that way.
And I would just stress that, something of that nature isn't necessarily a part of just mass media or that kind of a media conglomerate, so to speak, but it could be anywhere. And so it's important that we have this dialogue because we want to always be cognizant of power structures and hierarchies and how they exist for men and women, and just to be aware of the importance of talking about it and being confident and willing to share in order to ensure that someone else isn't experiencing something similar and is afraid to speak out, because it's important to have that voice. And so that's why I bring it up. And I know sometimes it's a very, very tender, sensitive subject. And I just want, when I have women who are in positions of power, like some of you are, like the three of you are, I want you to be able to kind of share so that folks out there who might be experiencing it have the ability to speak.
I think that
Yeah.
it's been as simple as, that ain't right. With the tiniest little twinge of it, that ain't right.
Absolutely.
And yeah,
And I feel
say
like that
something.
has
If you
done a
do,
lot.
if you do experience something like that, say something. I mean,
Absolutely.
no matter who you are, male, female, if you experience something like that from a superior, from somebody you're working with, say something about it. Like, don't let it just fly. And I think that we're getting a lot better with that, especially with things like Me Too. But
Yes.
yeah, definitely do not hide it and feel
Yes.
ashamed about it. Talk about it for sure.
Yes, and I'm happy to hear that your experience hasn't been like that, because obviously, this kind of thing does go on because of what we have seen come to light, and so it's important for us to just talk about it. And I'm glad to hear that you all haven't experienced that or experienced resistance when it comes to people of the opposite sex, because we do want to believe that things are changing and our equitable playing field is getting better. That's good to hear, so.
Now, and you've all taken great journeys to get where you are today. I want to talk a little bit about the people that maybe helped you get there, the mentors you found that gave you the confidence, the security, the pat on the back, and sometimes the kick in the, to say, hey, be realistic. How'd you find your mentors, and what did those mentors do for you?
So one specific person who comes to mind for me is someone who's actually come here and spoken to your classes, which is Cynthia Sassy. I don't know if anybody in this room was here when she spoke. She produces an online digital website called Fabulous Arizona. And she was the only other person in town who, when I reached out, she reached back to me and said, oh, you're doing something kind of similar, which is highlighting local brands and talking about them through media. let's get coffee and let's chat. And she was so willing to share information. She was so open to make connections for me. And because of her, if anyone ever reaches out to me, I will be like, yes, let's get a coffee. Yes, do you need an introduction with that person? Because she's opened so many doors for me. And so when you have that person there who's willing to do those things for you, it helps you pay it forward because, man, she's come here. She's an amazing speaker. She's an amazing person. She's doing great stuff. But it helps you have that inspiration to want to do that for the next person as well, if that ever comes up for you. So finding that person, I'd say just reach out. If you know somebody, if you follow somebody online, if you follow someone on social media. That's how I reached out to her. And, social media can be a bad thing with the trolls, with the terrible stuff like that, but it can be really great too because it can help you connect with people you maybe haven't met in real life yet, you maybe otherwise wouldn't know. So use that to your advantage if you're somebody who you want to go into media. I assume all of you here have some sort of interest in media. Reach out to people, follow their story, know who they are, know what they're doing so that when you talk to them, you can talk educatedly about what they're doing, their business, their careers, whatever it is, and then reach out to them. And people usually will, I find, be like, yeah, let's chat. Why not?
Someone reached out to me, I think 6 months ago. She now works at our TV station.
No way!
From Wisconsin. I'm like, girl, you're going to be here in Uncle Boulder. I didn't know 6 months later she was interviewing. So anyhow, so you just never know. And she had sent me a couple clips of her work, and she asked me, she actually had worked with one of my producers, so I think she had come to Phoenix back and forth and seen me on TV and said she liked what I did, and so she wanted some notes. So I gave her some notes. She applied them. She sent another tape back. I gave her some more notes. She applied them. Then I saw her in my boss's office and said, what are you doing? So it was pretty darn exciting. But that's me on the mentor side. So when I was an intern, at Channel 12, and that's when I met Steve McLaughlin. I also met Carrie Lake. We won't get political, but I'll tell you what, Carrie totally helped me during my career. And she would look at my resume tapes. Steve would look at my resume tapes. I'd call him if I had a question. How do I work around this? And they were always accessible to me. And I really appreciated that. And that was before social media. So I had to call the newsroom. And I remember one time, Catherine Anaya, she worked in the market for a very long time. She does, I think, PBS now, and I see there. So she was, I found out, a sorority sister of mine at ASU. So she was working in LA, and I called the LA newsroom. And I asked for Catherine Anaya. And I was sitting in Springfield, Missouri. And she answered the phone. And I couldn't believe it. And so we had like a nice 20-minute conversation. And the second I got to town, she was one of the people who congratulated me and said, you're here now. You're one of us now. Don't be looking at us like, oh, you're in Phoenix. You're in Phoenix, girl. You did it. So I just really, as Lexi said, it's so nice that you just DM someone. And they're thrilled to have someone who actually wants... has an interest in what they do, enjoy it, see that they're good at it, and they're happy to share the knowledge, I think, most of the time. Because a lot of my DMs are people want something, how can, they're not, or they have something ugly to say. So to have something that's so pure and kind and a way that I can give and that's easily and makes me feel good, it feels good to, help each other. And so I think don't be shy. Those DMs are our friends.
Yeah. But know who you're reaching out to. That's something that someone told me at the beginning. Don't just send a blanket email or a blanket DM or whatever it is. Know who you're reaching out to. Know what they do. Comment on what they do. Like if I were going to reach out to Jamie, I wouldn't be like, hey, so I know you're on some channel in Phoenix. Like I would know.
That happens. I'm like, or they spell my name wrong.
Oh, yeah, spell their name right. Look at these things. Yeah, spell their name right. Know what they do. Be able to comment on what they do. Because then people are going to be like, oh, they really do follow my career. And I do want to help this person. And the connections that you make in that way can be so invaluable. You never know when someone will be like, hey, I just talked to someone on Instagram the other day. I can't do this job. Maybe they want to hear about it. Let me shoot it over to them. It's good. You can do it on social media. It's not, inappropriate to reach out to someone via a DM for something professional. Just be professional when you do it.
I do have to, before you answer, I have to confess, I've sent a couple emails to JAMIE.
Did they get rejected?
They don't, I don't get it.
Bounce back.
No, they don't. That's the problem. I think someone at AZ Family just reads them and laughs. Oh, someone's not just.
They have the email with your name spelled wrong, and they just laugh at all the emails that come in and don't answer them.
I'm glad they can have those
I had to
emails.
figure out, I searched Gmail help how to erase that, because I was like, I did it once and now it pops up, and I'm like, oh my God.
That's why I'm Soretta News on Instagram. Just spell Soretta right, and you can find me.
Spell check.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've rarely ever met somebody who does not want to help somebody. You know, if you're successful in whatever industry you're in, if you take the time, vested interest, and know who you're reaching out to, I've rarely met somebody who has not taken the time to answer back. I get messages all the time, and I always answer people if the messages are appropriate, which mostly they are. So, you know, we are here to help and serve others. When you step into a role of leadership in whatever industry you're at, you take on that responsibility, in my opinion. And if you're serious about what you do, you come prepared to help other people pave the way for that next chapter too, that next part of your trailblazing, basically, for that next opportunity. And so reach out and connect with others. It's all about human connection. And if you can set yourself apart from somebody else who's in the DMs, even better. Because very few people are going over and beyond nowadays. You know, it's just trying to like shoot off a message and then see what sticks. Be specific, be clear in your communication, and you will get, and ask great questions. That's another one. The better questions you ask, the better results you're going to get.
And speaking of asking questions, we'll take a quick little field break here. Does anyone have any questions for any of our three panelists that they would like to ask as far as how we've gone so far? You could ask from up here, Jeannie. You didn't have to go down there. Okay. Anybody have any questions? Gina in the back?
How do you make yourself stand out if your skill level is just the same as all the other candidates who are applying?
I'm going to make you say it just a little louder.
Let's say, for example, you're applying for a job or trying to partner up with somebody, but there's a bunch of people doing the same thing. How do you make yourself stand out if your skill level and merit is just the same as everyone else?
Well, that's a great question. Definitely sharpen your skill set. Always be learning, always be growing. That's going to help you personally be able to dig from within and stand out that way. But also, if it's an application, just in the way of dropping it off, be respectful. You know, show up. We get a lot of kids at our locations that come in, and I'm not kidding you, they'll come in with a resume with French fry grease on it and drop it off. And that sounds shocking. I mean, it is shocking. But how does that look on our end? I mean, you think we want to accept an application with someone's French fried grease all over it? So, oh yeah, it happened. And, you know, there are ways to stand out, just going over and beyond, just the smallest of things, being polite. I know that sounds shocking, but people just don't even have manners anymore nowadays. Yes, thank you. Just being courteous goes such a long way. I mean, it's astonishing how often we just don't even get a thank you from people that walk into the store sometimes. So I just think specifically when it comes to resume and doing something in person has a better effect than doing something online. When I can see someone face to face, it goes a long way.
I think relationships help a lot. As you said, a lot of referring happens in Phoenix. And since I had been interviewing at 3TV for 14 years, looking for the perfect role for me, I met a lot of people, and then I clung on to them. And then social media makes it easy, where you can continue to follow their journey and cheer for them and send them a little note here and there. And then when I walked in the newsroom, I didn't know how many people I had cheering for me. Soretta, we haven't hired her yet? Get that girl in here. I had like 5 different people who had said, just hire her already. You let out, these bozo who you had to let go 2 weeks in, just get her in here. She wants to be here, So I think those I had these long-lasting, just kind of even social media relationships with people, like Carrie Pena, mentioned Carrie Pena, who had kind of watched me go bebop through these different towns, but still knocking on Channel 3's door. So I think I kind of had built-in friends when I got there just because they had followed my journey and felt part of it.
I think something that goes a really long way too, if you're applying for a job and like you said, you have the exact same skill set as everybody else, what's gonna set you apart is what you can do for that job, including that in if it's a cover letter, if it's an interview. They don't wanna hear about why you will benefit from the job. They want to hear about what you're going to do for them. So if you come into an interview or if it's you're writing a cover letter, whatever that may be, and you can include, hey, so I want to work for your newsroom. I know that I can do this for you guys. I know I can do this for you guys. They don't want to hear about how, oh, I really want this job and I think I'd be really good at it and I want to do this and this has been my dream. That's all great, but that's probably the same thing those other candidates are saying. What are you going to do for them? Because that makes people go, oh, she did do the research. He did look at what we do. They do know what we do here. They do care about us and our company and our business. That's what most people don't do in an interview, in a cover letter.
You know what made me think of something when Lexi was just talking? Do you guys know Alex Hermosi on Instagram? He's the one in like the short shorts and he's always giving, just his tips of the day. So what she just said, he hired one of his Instagram Reels editors because this kid took the time to say, here, I know you don't know who I am, but I want you to, I took clips from all your videos from YouTube and I edited all of them. This is my work, this is what I can do for you. He never asked for anything. He just gave all this time and talents to Alex, and now he is the lead editor for all of his Instagram Reels. So another way to stand out is possibly, wherever you're, looking at sending your resume to, create a product, create a video, create something tangible that they can see your work that extends far beyond what somebody else would take the time to do.
Thank you three for being here. I'm in Brent's business communications class, and we have these discussions a lot. I think this is a very important subject. So what do you think, being as a man, we might not have the same experiences in the workplace. What do you think is a good forum for these type of conversations so that we can make it like also a learning experience? Because there might be a misunderstanding or something that gets said that someone might not know they're offending someone. What do you think is the most appropriate way we can address those issues and make it more of a learning experience for the people moving forward? Thank you.
Well, at work right now, we have a diversity and inclusion club. I call it a club. I don't know. But we meet once a month. I call it club because it sounds fun. But but we do. We have these conversations. We have a very mixed group in there, and I love that the intention is everyone is spending their personal time to be here, and they want to learn, and then they want to be spreaders of this information in our workplace. So I think finding those diversity, or even you can always chat with HR, but I think that diversity group I've really enjoyed because I've been able to hear things from other points of view that I hadn't thought of, that I wanted to be aware of. And, we're all learning together as we move forward. And I found that club was very useful for me personally.
No, I think for anybody who, if you are learning, like you were just saying, Jamie, that we're all going to make mistakes. No one's perfect. So whatever the case may be, coming at it with the understanding and the idea that everybody's trying their best, and when people do mess up, not kind of this cancel culture that we're in right now, like, well, you're dead to me, I'll never talk to you again, giving people the benefit of the doubt and trying to allow them another chance, another opportunity to learn, to do better. Because I know if I messed up, I would want that opportunity. And I think something like that where it's a group, it's multiple people talking about it all together, there's not this HR hanging over your head, it's not scary, no one's gonna get in trouble. There's kind of a posture of forgiveness and grace. I think that goes a really, really long way. So I know that's what I would want if I did something that offended someone or hurt someone. I would want to have a group discussion where I could learn and then do better the next time.
Thank you for sharing that, because I think that's integral to any relationship and moving forward. And so oftentimes we need to remember we need to be creating this culture of care, which GCC is very proud of. We do that for our students. We do that for the staff here and all of the stakeholders that are invested here. So we thank you for mentioning that, because empathy goes a long way. And we're all going to make mistakes. We're all human. And when we're building relationships with one another, it's very important that we have that opportunity, or give others the opportunity to start over again and have that fresh slate, right? And be able to bounce back, because we know that so many people who have grown and become something very important have failed at one point or another. And so it's important that you share that. And I have like a kind of quick snippet. Lexi Romano happens to be my former student. I teach MCO 120 and MCO 220 here at the college, and she was in my class, and so I love it that you just said that.
Professor Desai is great. If you guys aren't taking her class, take her class, get into it. She's awesome.
I love my students, and that's like why I do this work. And so it's very powerful to see all of you here. And my student right now, Chris Rogers, actually has a question, so I'm going to bring it to her.
I had a question about the women wellness retreat that you were mentioning earlier.
Sure. So we basically focus all about, it's very transformational. It's reawakening, rediscovering, realigning to self. They're sometimes a day retreat, sometimes they're a week retreat. It just depends on where they're at. We are hosting one next month, April 29th in Sedona. It's going to be a full day retreat from 9 until about 6 on Saturday. And anybody who wants to stay overnight can join us for meditation on Sunday morning. So what it looks like is a very intimate group of women. We keep it typically 8 to 10 ladies, that's it. But we're all coming together for sacred connection. So, you know, there's no, what you just said. It's a center of care, no judgment. It's a place for all of us to come together to support one another. Breath work is used, meditation, visualization exercises. We do a lot of grounding work. So it's a really beautiful process to return to self, to drown out the noise, to digitally detox. They're very transformational. So if you'd like more information, I'd love to talk to you more about it, or even go on my website and you can learn more about it.
Okay, I've got to take a step back while she's collecting the microphone, because the information you gave about the applications and doing stuff for people, the people that here are in my business communications class, they're probably going, oh, these three women said it's so much better than you've been trying to beat it up to us for a semester worth. But you all do things in the community, you do things within your industry, and this is a little bit off topic, but I just thought about it, I need to know. How meaningful is it when someone takes the time to either send you an email that says thank you so much for your time, or better yet, pulls out a piece of paper, writes something out, sticks it in the mail, and you open something up a week later that says, wow, Jamie, wow, Chrissy, Lexi, it was so powerful seeing you doing this. Thank you for your time, your effort, your information. What does that act mean to you as a person, as a mentor, as a leader, as a woman within the community? How does that affect you?
No, I was going to say, I think that's a really great thing to do for any time that you want to say thank you to somebody. I mean, we don't really like write things out as often anymore, but that's super meaningful to get something in the mail. But even just an email, and something that's great about that, if you work with someone and they've done something with you or they've mentored you or something like that, it's a great way to, A, express your gratitude and be thankful, but also like keep yourself in their mind. So I always do that when I work with people, because it's a great way to just remind them, like, hey, in case you need us for anything else, like, we're here, but thanks again. So it's really meaningful, of course, to put that personal touch on it, and it's a great way to just stay fresh in someone's mind.
I'm not a hiring executive. You guys hire. But I don't. So I think of, if I feel like it's odd to reach out, for me to reach out, you can't love too much. So if I'm sending someone some kind of like form of love by thanking them and making a note of our appearance together, or just saying what was really special to me. It won't be weird if you can't love them too much, right? You got to just send the love out there. So that's what I believe in. And then for me, it doesn't need to be a thank you note or a whatever. I love when I hear from my friends on a text message. Last week I received some brownies with a picture of me on them from one of my local loves. That was fun. They were delicious. We received a card from someone who we met at the Open. It's all beautiful and it's all love. So I don't think it matters which form and which way. And if you're looking to get hired, I think like Lexi said, hey, how you doing? I enjoyed our meeting. Look forward to working with you again. When I saw you on TV the other day, that red looks stunning on you, I mean, how many times do we slide into each other's inboxes with stuff like that all the time? So I think you go with the love.
And that's kind of how we started talking and communicating. I was lucky enough to do a segment with you and a thank you here and there and let's do something else, and has now blossomed into me getting you out to Glendale for a couple of hours. And so I think that show of love, as you say, it's a powerful thing, and people just assume they've given it. I said thank you at the end of the meeting. I shook their hands, I smiled. That extra step is just, there's not a measure to it as far as how it means.
I'm a big believer in love. The more love, the better. You can't love on people enough, especially nowadays, so I'm all about the love. I created a gratitude box that I give back for my guests now on the podcast. So I just had a guest last week, Tom Hatton. Everybody here in Arizona pretty much knows him. So he's going to be getting a gratitude box from Aligned and Alive podcast. It's going to be full of everything I know he loves. So now I know I'm specific pertaining to, and I'm taking the time to send something. In regards to following up on a resume, of course, just like Brent said, even shooting a text message, thanking somebody for the interview goes a long way. Following up is huge because sometimes people do get so busy, and it's nothing personal. It's just there's so much going on in the business that maybe they just didn't have time to get back to you. So follow up, follow up, follow up. I can't tell you how many times we've gotten so busy where the interview was great and we didn't get back right away, but someone has followed up and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for reaching out again. And so we'd hire them. So it's not necessarily a matter of it's a personal thing, they didn't like you. Always follow up and find unique ways to do so. I'm a big advocate of the handwritten note. I love cards in the mail because you rarely get them. So, yeah.
I have a question. So because this is Women's History Month, I would love for you to just share a moment in your career where you felt empowered and felt like you had made a difference in some capacity. Because as women, and you all have been sharing these wonderful stories in our segment today, and essentially I'm hearing how much you like to give, the care and concern that you have, the empathy that you have. What's that one moment that is a memory for you that you felt like you made a difference and you felt like, yes, I did this and I know that I touched this person, or maybe you impacted a great group of people, that sort of thing? And I know I'm going off script, but I am all about kind of digging deep. I have the background, and so, yes, I love to dig deep.
So with Jamie's Local Love, it's all about the love, right?
Yes.
You go into a newsroom and
Yes.
you try to sell this idea
Absolutely.
that covers crime and murder and car crashes.
Yes.
And people stealing, embezzlement, etc.
Sure.
So it's a tough sell.
It is.
And
not everybody wants to give the love either. I mean, it's beautiful to hear this from you ladies, honestly, because I feel like I'm all about empowering women to support one another, lift up, and I'm so glad to have you here for this reason, because you're sharing the importance of that.
And I fought hard to do those stories.
Yes.
I had to battle many obstacles in which I could provide proof that they meant something. The pandemic did that.
Yes.
Because all of a sudden, your local businesses were in dire straits.
Right.
And I was at the forefront. And I've been doing local love for 7 years now. And so I was, 5 years in when this happened. And I had seen, a business that said, we made our rent this weekend. Your story aired on Thursday, we made our rent that weekend because you came in here. I have a girl with tears in her eyes said, you made my Christmas. I'm sitting here at Central and Camelback. You made my Christmas. Practical art if you're looking for a local gift. But, she never forgets that. And then during the pandemic, when people were hanging on, all of a sudden, local love was at the forefront, and it made it very important, was what I was selling all the whole time. Main Street America, you've got the butcher, you've got the milk guy, you've got the marketplace guy, you've got where you're gonna get your car. This is how a town is built. And even though we're in a big town, it comes down to, the Sorettas making candy, the local families, and then who not only are supporting their own families, but are providing jobs for hundreds of people by the, chocolate they're ordering from Guittard, or the trucks that are driving, the truckers who are driving. So all of a sudden it became very important. So I think during the pandemic, although it was a critical time, I just felt like my work was so important, and it was touching those people every day who I got to you guys do it with your work. You bring attention to local businesses and to let people know about them. Because half the thing is, who can I help today? Some people were sitting around wondering during the pandemic, and then they turn on the TV, that guy selling brownies looks like a great one. I'm going to go cut them a check. So I think it was really, that was the pandemic with local love was really, really important. And I felt really, really lucky. And I'll give a shout out to Local First Arizona, because if you guys are in the business brands, I love Local First Arizona. They were at the forefront of getting our local businesses money, government money, state money. Kimber Lanning was standing there next to Governor Ducey advocating for our businesses. And I just think that any way that you can get involved, whether you just go to their fall festival, or they do this thing called Weekend Zona, where they take you to different small towns and you do a little 2-night trip, and they set it all up, and it's a blast. And it's a great way to explore Arizona. We should all go on one. And so it's just, I think that was, they partnered with me, and I was grateful to them for partnering with me and helping me find some of those businesses who were having a tough time during that
You
pandemic.
just gave me goosebumps. Thank you for sharing that. Yes, because that's important to give back in that way. So wonderful, wonderful. And you do it too with your show.
I was going to say, we do something very similar. So yeah, that's very, very cool to get to see and get to
Highlight
experience.
businesses.
And yeah, it's really unique, and you do get to meet so many different people and see different things going on in town, and it just kind of open up your perspective for the whole city, because we are a big city, but we feel like a small town. So once you kind of find those local spots, oh man, it's just so cool.
Do you have a question in relation to what they're speaking about?
Not in that specifically, but I do have a question.
Okay, so I'm going to go to him because he was waiting earlier, and then I'm going to go to you, okay? So just to be fair, but I will get to you, I promise. I won't.
I have a question about just talking about love and all that stuff. So, do you think love is a distraction from going to success? So I feel like I don't want to regret not loving somebody, you know what I mean? Trying to run to success, and then when I get there, it's like I don't have anybody to share with, you know what I mean?
So Joey's one of our baseball players, and he's in my class, and I think he's an aspiring professional baseball player, and so I think that's what he's talking about, is he's got a dream of achievement, and he wants to know what you guys think about, there's all these distractions out there, right? And this is one of the things that our students face, is they're constantly distracted, and yet they have these aspirations to succeed. But how do you handle that? How do you handle distractions, I guess is what you're asking, right? Because giving love could obviously deter you as well.
I don't think love is a distraction. And I think with FaceTime and technology the way it is, I'm single, never been married, no kids. I moved from town to town with reckless abandon. I left a beautiful tugboat captain down in Beaumont, Texas. Ain't no tugboats here, I was coming here. I don't regret it because I feel like I went after the life I wanted and I'm living it. I'm also alone right now. But I pursued all those lovely relationships I had till the end, and I really let them break up with me because I wanted to know that I gave it everything I had. I did 3 long-distance relationships. I dated a guy who was a hockey player in Beaumont who moved to Canada. Skype was a new thing then. I dated a guy who was in Phoenix. He was in Phoenix. I was in Oklahoma. I'm gonna get in Phoenix. Guess what? He went to China. So now we're back to Skype.
Oh, dear.
And then I dated a guy who was going back and forth to Florida during the pandemic, and now he's in the UK. So I'm always grateful that I pursued them and pursued them till it ended for me. But I've also seen a girlfriend of mine in Joplin, Missouri, so that's 24 years ago. She met a guy when she was undercover at this dive bar.
Wow.
On a story, her first weekend in town. She met this guy, she married him, they have 2 kids, they're living their life in New York. So you just never know. You just never know. So go where the love is, go where the job is, and I think that you can have both.
Well, I was going to say, I think it depends on what distractions you're talking about. So if it's love in terms of a relationship, if that's what you mean, or if you just mean giving love to people in general, if that's going to take time away from your career pursuits, don't let anything distract you from your dreams, except for love. I think that's the only thing. Because so for me, I used to live in New York City, and I moved here to be with my husband. But I found new ways to pursue my dream, different ways. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now if I still lived in New York. I don't know if I ever would have done this, if I ever would have found this passion, if I ever would have pursued this. And it changed my whole life. But that was because even though I moved here and things changed, I said, well, I'm not going to let it stop me. I'm going to find another way to do it. So I think if it's another distraction, don't let anything like that ever distract you. But I think if it's love, you can find a way to have it all and both, but finding the way to carve that out for yourself, being open to both things. I don't know if that helps.
Does that help? Okay, perfect. All right, we're going to get to your question.
What struggles did you encounter when you were doing your career changes, and how did you kind of overcome them?
That's a good question.
So for me, like I just said, I used to live in New York City. I have a performance background. I was a singer and actor and traveled all over, and that's what I did. So I don't have a, long history in media. So when I started this, just when I moved here to Arizona about 5 years ago, I did have to completely relearn a whole new field. I came here to study. I really put the time in. I think what you need to do is not give up. When you're starting something new, when you're transitioning into something new, it's going to be difficult because you don't have the wealth of experience that you might have had in another field. So applying yourself, taking the time to learn, meeting everybody. Like I said, I reached out to so many people on social media, meeting everybody, learning as much as I could, putting myself out there, networking as much as I could. That's how you start in a new field, and that's how you create a new lane for yourself. And it takes time. People always ask me about the show that I do. Oh, well, I'd love to do what you do. Can you tell me how you did it? It's like, well, it didn't happen last week. I didn't start this last week. This has taken years of putting this together, of building this, of working with people, of networking. So just don't give up. Just I know that sounds really trite, but just keep going, keep doing it no matter what it is. If you really, really want to do that thing, if you're transitioning or if you're just starting, just don't give up. Just keep going. Find another avenue if you have to, or meet somebody new and ask them how they did it. It's that time. It will take time. We're in a culture now where we think everything happens so quickly, and it just doesn't. So having that patience with yourself and with your career, and you'll see the dividends pay off.
So I think I've had 10 different co-anchors in my 10 years at Channel 3. I've had maybe 4 or 5 different roles. So I think I really learned to be a chameleon. My goal was to be a Monday through Friday anchor at Channel 3. That was it. That was happening. Hell or high water, that was going to happen. And what did I need to do to make that happen? So when I was hired here, I came in as the weekend evening anchor, and I was reporting on, the child abuse, the serious news, hard news stories that happen at nighttime, and then I'd anchor the weekend show. And then I went to the 4 p.m. anchor, and then I'd be making calls from the anchor desk in commercial breaks, because then I had to go out and report for the 9 and 10 after. And then a new station bought us, and people went all kinds of shifts, a lot of changes. I considered it a demotion, and I went to Good Morning Arizona weekends. So now all of a sudden I was waking up at 2 a.m. instead of starting my day at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. But what that allowed me is to let Jamie's Local Love take off, and to let my personality shine, which I didn't really know was going to be a thing with TV. And some of these wacky moments that have happened on television happened because it's a long show and they could allow you a little more time to just kind of have fun. And then from there, I went to, a couple changes again happened, another ownership, another couple changes, and I said, I'll go to nights, and now I'm on nights. So I think just being meetable, my focus was always the same, but I was going to do, like you said, carve my way any which way. Where's the ball going today? I'll go that way. You want me to go do hard news? You want me to sit in the snow and spaghetti? You want me to be in a haboob? All right, Google them. It's worth it. But it's just whatever which way I was ready to go. I also think that I made a lot of allies because everyone knew how hard I was willing to work for things. I wasn't a diva about anything. And I think walking through the newsroom and saying hello to people makes a huge difference. Like I just go chat with people at their desks and say hello. And then, when the time comes when I need something, it's not like I did it that way, but I have those relationships with people. And I have people, now that I'm on nights, my Local Love, I tape it and it airs and it gets edited and it gets aired in the morning show. I have people who take tender care of it the way I do because of our friendship and our relationship, and they believe in what I created the way I do. And so I think, we talk about love, we talk about relationships. I talk about focus, being a chameleon, being kind, and then doing it with love. And I think that will serve you well.
So good. And that's also the art of pivoting. She just explained that so perfectly. So I'm the queen of rebranding. I've rebranded a gazillion times in my life, I feel, being a serial entrepreneur. So I've been in the health and wellness space, obviously media space, writing space, real estate, franchise owner. I mean, there's so many spaces I've been in, so I've had to pivot often and also rebrand. What stands out the most for me is about 2011 is when I got my real estate license. Well, I had 12 years of history. Everyone knew me as the former competitive figure skater, the Fitness America champion, the model in all these magazines, the TV host for all these things. That's what they knew me as. And all of the clients that I ended up working in the real estate space only knew me as that. So I really had to work hard to show them that I was now their go-to real estate agent. It took a long time. But in order to really streamline that process from people recognizing me as the go-to real estate agent as opposed to the go-to fitness pro, I started positioning myself around those in my community that were experts immediately. I went with new mentors, because that's going to be the quickest way to streamline the process in becoming an expert in whatever industry you want to be in, is to show up at those masterminds, get connected with their local events, seminars. There's so much available to you, and oftentimes these are free. I can name dozens of experts in our community that are hosting free seminars for you to come in and learn the art of investing in real estate with no money down, stuff like that. That's just an example. So if you position yourself in whatever industry you want to be in and attend those group settings, you're going to surefire your way to success so much quicker than trying to figure it out on your own. And I made that mistake. When I got into real estate, I knew all these people that I eventually ended up aligning myself with, but in the very beginning, I'm like, I'm an entrepreneur. I got this. I can figure it out on my own. And by having that mindset, I literally took off a year or two of my career that could have been just immediate within 6 months. So be open, stay curious, and align yourself with those that are doing it right now, that are in the trenches, succeeding and are producing results.
But for the confidence in all that, when you all change, even if it's from just morning news to nighttime news, weekends to weekdays, how much confidence did you have, or how much did you realize that the experiences you've had, the knowledge you've gained, it's all transferable? I mean, it may not get you to 100% with real estate, but your work in physical training, figure skating, all those things, there's a place for it in the next industry and in the next thing you're going to do. I see a lot of people who get afraid that say, well, I was doing this, I'm doing something different now, so I can't use what I had as a base to succeed into what I'm doing. And that kind of fear, that frightens me, I guess is not, try to use my good words here, frightens me because they don't feel sure that if they've worked in a restaurant for 10 years, that can be the launching pad to be the next great realtor, to be the next great business manager, business owner. Use what you have, and there's skill sets there, right? I mean, you can transfer your knowledges.
I wasn't confident at all. I was shook. But I was determined. I was shook and determined. And so I think I was a dog with a bone. And I had 14 years experience when I got here. And I always say, I should be better at this. Have I had my coffee yet, or whatever the case may be. But I really had to work through a lot of confidence issues because I was so disappointed in the path that was not my trajectory. Because my trajectory had been going up. And then all of a sudden, now I'm like bebopping around in the way that I didn't predict. And then I had to start doing things that I wasn't expecting. And so I think that I did it anyhow. So I wouldn't worry about the confidence. You think about a ball player, it's reps, right? You got to get your reps in. You got to work your reps. And so I just continued to work my reps. And then it gets easier and easier. I was nervous today, my first panel. I'm getting my reps in. Got another one next week. So I just think you do it anyhow, is what I always said. You do it anyhow. And then a lot of the things where I try to do a lot of things that scare me where I can't get fired, So if I do things that scare me where I can't get fired, then it brings me more confidence to the role that I am trained for. I know how to do. And I think that you just do it anyhow. And for me, I had a goal, I was going to achieve it, and I was hurt, and I was scared, and I was shook in my hometown in front of people who knew me. But, I just did it anyways.
I love that. Yeah, just show up and do it messy. That's how you're going to learn. That's how all of us learned. I mean, nobody shows up and is a pro right out the gate. I didn't become a champion figure skater one day on the ice and I just started doing double axels. It didn't work that way. I had to start and stack those habits and being consistent. Like you as an athlete in baseball, you have to show up every single day. You're training your brain. Your brain's a muscle. Train that. Start reading more books. Educate yourself more. I mean, I am glued to YouTube half the time or a podcast. I am always learning. I want to soak up as much as I possibly can so I can be a better vessel for others and a better leader. How am I going to have a top podcast if I'm not learning more? And so I immerse myself into content every single day. So whatever you want to do that you want to fine tune, sharpen that sword. And just show up every single day. Your success is going to be indicative of your daily habits. If you tell me what your habits are every single day, I can tell you where you're going to be in 60 to 90 days for sure. And that's being dead serious. If you can give me your routine of what you're doing and what you're trying to create self-mastery in, it has to be done on a consistent basis. So show up messy. That's how you're going to learn. Fall in front of everybody. Everyone has. And they may laugh at you right now, but they're not going to in a couple years from now. They're going to be the one, they're seeking you out for advice. So you just have to bring the fear with you and show up.
And you know what? If you have a different background, I know that's what you were saying, you mentioned, like if you've worked in a restaurant, how are you going to transition into real estate or something? everybody's background influences what makes them different. Like, I didn't, originally go to school for journalism or for, media in general. I have a performance background where I was like singing and acting on stage. That makes me slightly different from other people who've done different things in their backgrounds. And for Chrissy, she has this amazing background as a figure skater. Maybe that makes her a little bit more interesting when she's selling a house. People are like, wait, tell me about so-and-so. And Jamie, you've traveled all over the country. And so being here in Phoenix now, you appreciate things about Phoenix that other people who never left maybe don't. So your own unique background, even if you feel like it doesn't apply, it's not applicable to what you want to do, it makes you different from every other person who's doing it. That's also, to your point, just because you are different than everybody else, even if you have the same quote-unquote skill set. You're different.
No one has your DNA, and that's what makes you unique. That's the beauty of you. There is something that you can shine that maybe somebody else can't. And that's why when people are worried about someone copying them, with their content or what they're doing online, don't be worried. Just fine-tune you and keep doing you and show up anyway.
We got a great question from YouTube. Someone watching, Corey, wants to know, did you ever have to sacrifice financial stability to pursue your goals? If so, how did you reconcile or think through that risk to achieve your goals?
The last part of the question, did you think through the risk? Did you think? Oh, no, I did not think through the risk. I took it, my first job was $15,000, then I was really good at it, so I got a raise, $15,500. Yes! I supplemented my income by dressing up in my finest Scottsdale ASU gear in Joplin, Missouri, and winning best dressed at the local, bar and grill. It would be $20 to $200 on a Wednesday night. So I did not think through the financial question mark that would happen. I ended up very much in debt because I still attended my friends' weddings and parties as they were celebrating their life. I wanted to be there, and these are friends who are still in my life today. So I made financial sacrifices. So now is probably a good time to listen to some podcasts on 0% down on investment in real estate. So I think that was something that I was able to do because I was just working for one, and I was able to take some of these very low-paying jobs. But I'm here now, so it's time to make up for good time.
Well, for me, so I own and produce Phoenix Finds show. It is an actual business. It's an LLC as well as being a digital media show. So I started with no money. The show had no money. So when I first started, I was bankrolling everything because I didn't want to take out loans for the business under the business name. I wanted to earn all the capital so that then I was able to fund my business myself. So that took a lot of work. I had to have other jobs on the side. I didn't just start doing the show and then that was all I did. I had to work other jobs. I had to do other things. And that was a huge sacrifice. And it was really hard to juggle both of those things. But now the business is self-sufficient and I have no loans. I've never had to take out a loan for the business. I've never had to do anything like that. I have completely self-funded. And that was something that was a goal from the very, very, very beginning. So you might have to do that. You might have to sacrifice at the beginning, but it is so worth it because now I owe no one nothing. I am completely self-sufficient in the business, and what I make, I take and I put back into the business to make it better, hopefully, and help it grow. So those sacrifices will come, and if you're going to start something yourself, or if you're going to take a job that maybe doesn't pay you how much you want to be making, if that's what you want to do, that's sometimes what you got to do. You got to start there, and you got to work your way up.
My experience is the exact same. I mean, I've self-funded everything my entire life. And so when I got into skating, actually, I come from a family of 5, so there's 3 kids. I'm the middle. And my dad was a steel and crane engineer. So he set steel on all the high-rises in downtown Chicago. So his salary wasn't, wow, it was great. We had a wonderful life. But mom and dad didn't have $35,000 to spend on my competitive skating a year. Dresses were $2,000 sometimes just for a competition. And so what did I do? I got smart. I just started taking on 2-3 jobs at a time. And so whether that was in the hair salon, shampooing hair at 16 years old and maybe waiting some tables on the weekend, so at a young age, I already started doing all this. And so that money supported my skating competition and coaching costs? Well, enter into Out Here for school. I paid my way for school, same thing. Took that next career and just worked away while I paid for the next. So I've never had a loan on anything, and I've always funded everything on myself. And I think, nowadays it's the easiest thing to do because there's even more opportunity to make more money now than there was 20 years ago. So it's even easier to duplicate that model if you're willing to put in the work. And I can tell you right now, it's the most gratifying experience of my entire life to know that nobody else wrote me a check for what I've accomplished along the way.
That is fabulous. Seriously, that's just an accomplishment in itself, right? So, do you all have other questions for our panelists? I know you all have been sitting a very long time, and so have you. Brent, do you have anything else?
Well, I think the last thing I wanted to kind of talk about that you brought up a little bit was work-life balance. And Chrissy got here first and we were kind of chatting about it beforehand. But there's this misnomer, I think, as far as there's a set number of hours you're supposed to work, time you're supposed to be at home. How do you manage it? Two of you have your own businesses and you get to kind of dictate that. So I'd like to hear how you guys do it. And also, Jamie, has it changed at the station as far as how much they expect of you, the hours that they're having you put in? So have companies gotten to 2023 as to what's appropriate in work-life balance? And is there an appropriate work-life balance?
I think it looks different for everybody. I don't think there's any one set structure. You work within what works for you. And it's so easy this just happened this morning as I was talking to a girlfriend of mine. She's a new mom, and she's already back to work very quickly. And people in her industry are already giving her a hard time because how could you go back to work so quickly? You should be at home raising your baby. So, there's a lot of people pointing fingers out there, but ultimately you need to honor what works for you. And so, for instance, when I'm working at home on a Saturday afternoon, that brings me joy. I love what I do. I don't feel like it's work. While it is work and it's very, time intensive a lot of times, managing all these multiples, there's nothing else I'd rather be doing. But I'm also very intuitive when I need to take a break. When I need to maybe pop up to Sedona for a couple days and just do a reset. So I'm very, I understand what that looks like for me. That may be completely different for somebody else. So I really think it comes down to figuring out what works best for you.
So when I started in the business, you always have to come to the table with your story ideas, and they should be not only an idea, but something that you vetted this morning, and you already have an interview set up at 3:45, and I'm telling you at 2:30. So we've always been working before we went into work, and then with sources, you give them your phone number. And of course, they always happen to call the second you land in Hawaii. They have this big story for you, and now I gotta call up my bosses, connect them to my unknown source, and make that happen, and then enjoy the hula show later tonight. So I think it's, we love our phones, and we love that we can connect in that way. But I am very protective of myself, for sure. And I think even the pandemic, I really learned how to protect myself. As far as my time is my time. Got the text. You know what? I'll give you, I'm going to be live at 5:45 from Bike Week on Thursday. Yes, at 9 a.m. on Thursday, they want to remind me I'll have a tease at 5:31. Okay. I'm just, getting my coffee in. I'll deal with this when I get to work. So just kind of learning what needs immediate recognition and what doesn't. There are some things that need your immediate attention, what does not. And I've learned I don't have to respond to everything right away, and that I can respond to it on my own time. And for whatever reason, I think that was a lesson that took me too long to learn. I thought a text message needed to be immediately responded to. And then I think that a lot of my work, it feels like play. And a lot of my play kind of ends up being work, where I will be at places where I find a local business I love. What do I love to do? I love to go walk. I like to call it an urban hike. I'd walk in Sedona along the businesses and talk to the people about the olive oil, you know? So you naturally end up doing some of that stuff. But I'm definitely very, like Chrissy said, when you need your time, you need your time, and I cancel everything, and there is no ifs, ands about it. I'm out, I'm out, I'm out. I even put it on the calendar, Jamie time, make no plans. So, protective of that.
Yeah, no, I think that you're totally, totally right. But I also think you earn your time, like your work-life balance. You earn that once you have gotten to a point. As an entrepreneur, there are times that if you don't do it, no one's going to do it, and it's not going to get done. So you have to sometimes put in that work, even if you're like, oh man, it's a Saturday afternoon, and I would like to be done right now, but I can't. I'm going to do this. But you earn that work-life balance, that me time. Once as an entrepreneur, you know everything is done. And as someone who, when you work for a bigger company, you earn that through being there for that time, and they know you, they trust you, they know you're going to do it, even if you don't answer that first text right away. But I just think putting in that work initially, it will pay off in that time for yourself when you do really, really need it. But yeah, take care of yourself. Don't. I'm not advocating, being a workaholic, but just, putting that time into work first.
Okay, with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up, unless you all have questions, because we have gained so much knowledge from all of you, and so thank you so much for that. And your questions have been fabulous. All of you have brought in some insightful questions, and we really appreciate you being here, and we know that this takes a little extra time out of your schedule, and we just love that you're here to support our community events and the women who took time out of their busy schedules to come here. So if you don't have any questions, we're just going to thank you so much for your expertise and say it has been an absolute pleasure to get to know each one of your stories. And thank you, Brent, for bringing all of these fabulous ladies here, because Brent is my co-conspirator, and if I ask, I shall receive when it comes to Brent. I am so grateful for that, because he brings so much to our diversity committee. And again, it's such a pleasure for me as an instructor to see how successful Lexi is. It brings me such delight and pride when I see her show and watch it and know that, I had a little piece of that. So thank you. Thank you all. Any last words? Okay, thank you.